Hello everyone, Silent here and welcome back to another Bedrock Edition tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to build a rather simple and straightforward squid farm for your Bedrock Edition worlds. Now, this is likely very different from most squid farms that you've seen on Bedrock Edition because it's not just a giant square. We have two separate spawning tanks with this design, which allows us to take advantage of how Bedrock Edition spawns mobs. So although this farm is technically a little bit smaller than a standard design, it still gets us more ink, more bones, and more fish as well. Not only that, you can build like just one half of the farm, and then later on you can build the other half when you have the time or resources to do so. And if you're playing on a higher simulation distance, you can even expand the farm for more drops and more ink. Now, this squid farm is designed for a simulation distance of 4, and it works just fine for all realms, all servers, and all worlds that you might be playing in. So I hope you enjoy this in your Bedrock Edition worlds. Let's take a closer look at the squid farm, shall we? As you can see, we have the spawning spheres texture pack on this world, and that basically shows us where mobs can spawn around the player. As you can see, both sections of the squid farm are within the 44 radius needed for simulation distance for worlds. Some of the corners of the squid farms are slightly cut off, but that is nothing to worry about. Overall, the vast majority of the farm is completely within range of the player. More importantly, both of these squid farms are more than 4 chunks apart, which means that they have their own mob caps associated with them. The density checks of Bedrock Edition do not reach from one farm to another, so you can have multiple squid in both squid farms without them affecting one another, and this is what allows us to get much higher rates than a standard squid farm design that you would see on Bedrock Edition. Normally, when you have a giant square of water, one squid that spawns in the far corner would be taking up the mob cap of the entire farm until it dies, which does actually significantly hurt your rates, but that is not an issue with this design. Just as a demonstration, I replaced all the magma blocks with stone so that we can see all the different mobs inside of the farms and demonstrate the separate mob caps per farm. So as you can see in this farm over here, we have 2 dolphins, and on the opposite side we have 4 dolphins, and the mob cap for dolphins is only 4. So the fact that we have 6 proves that there is one separate mob cap per farm. This allows us to get 8 squids in this entire area instead of the normal cap of 4, which helps our rates a lot. The rest of the squid farm is honestly pretty standard. We're building it very high up in the air, that way no mobs will spawn in the ocean below you to take up the mob cap. We have 7 layers of water above some magma blocks for magma block bubble columns, and all the fish and squids and dolphins that spawn in those bubble columns will be immediately sucked down and then die on the magma blocks. Anything that they drop will be collected by hopper minecarts going beneath the magma, and then that of course will go into your storage system. It's honestly pretty straightforward and it works really well. You're probably wondering what the rates of the squid farm are, so let's delve into the rates, shall we? First of all, I'm going to tell you the rates of a basic squid farm, just a regular good old design. So using a regular squid farm, you'll get about 350 or so ink per hour and about 80 fish using the squid only AFK spot, and then if you AFK closer to the farm, you'll get around 280 ink, 4,100 fish, and about 800 bones. So as you can see, there's 2 very different ways to use the squid farms. You can get mainly ink and no fish, or you can get a little bit ink and a ton of fish. Now, raw fish is of course still very useful. It is a really good thing to smelt down for experience. It's basically the best thing to use for experience banks, and I made an entire video all about that in case you are interested. So those are the rates for a 32 by 32 square of water, pretty much the largest size farm that you can really get for a simulation distance of 4. Of course, you could make the farm larger if you felt like it, and you would get better rates, but that's not particularly the point of this video. And now for the rates of the new design. If you AFK on the center of the farm with a simulation distance of 4, you'll get about 408 ink per hour and about 60 fish. So that on its own is better than the standard designs. And then if you decide to AFK much closer to one side of the farm, then you get about 380 ink per hour, 2,400 fish per hour, and about 650 bones. So as you can see, it's not quite as good for the fish production, but you could always expand one one side of the farm significantly further if you were planning on doing a lot of close AFKing to it. That way you could really boost your fish production if you felt like it. Now, if you use this farm on a simulation distance of 6, then you can get up to 530 ink per hour just from standing in the middle and activating both sides. All things considered, this is definitely a little bit better than the standard squid farm designs, and it's certainly just new and interesting. We've had giant square squid farms for a very long time, and that's all there really is to say. It's a squid farm, it produces squids and inks, and it can give you a bunch of fish depending on where you AFK, and now it is time to hop into the tutorial. In case you're interested, there's going to be a full materials list down in the description of the video for your convenience, and the first thing that you want to do is find yourself a nice large patch of ocean. That way we have plenty of area to build our squid farm. You don't want to build it too close to land because you might accidentally end up building your squid farm above land, and then your squid farm isn't going to produce any squid. So make sure you're out in the middle of the ocean, and you need to build a platform up at Y191 so that when you're standing on top of this, you are at Y coordinate 191. This will prevent anything and everything from spawning in the ocean below you, no matter what simulation distance you are playing on. As you might have noticed, this is a 16 by 16 square, and this is chunk aligned. So you want to mark out the entirety of this chunk, and this entire build does have to be chunk aligned. That way we can have one mob cap per side of the squid farm. If you don't know how to chunk align, you can check out my video in the upper right. Now that we have our first chunk marked out, we need to expand this to the side. So basically pick a direction. This farm is not really directional, just go off to whichever side you like, and because this thing is already perfectly chunk aligned, we can just expand off of this and we'll know that we will stay chunk aligned. So we can just go off by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Basically just make another 16 by 16 square next to this original one, and this one will be perfectly chunk aligned as well. So these two squares right here are going to be the very center of your squid farm, and the AFK spot of your squid farm is going to be right here on the edges. It's either going to be right here or it's going to be right here. It doesn't really matter which one, as long as you are AFKing on one of these two blocks lined up with the center of the chunk, then you will be good to go. So I would suggest putting some marker blocks there for right now, and now we actually need to expand this little platform. We need to add 2 additional chunk markers going in that direction, and 2 additional chunk markers in that direction as well, for a total of 6 chunk markers. And there you go. As you can see, we now have a total of 6 chunk markers, and this is going to be the foundation of your squid farm. I would highly recommend that you double check that the very ends are chunk aligned, so double check that this one is chunk aligned, and double check that this one on the opposite end is also chunk aligned as well. If these are off by 1 or 2 blocks, that will kind of ruin the farm, and you won't have independent mob caps for each sides of your squid farm. From here on out, everything that we do to one side of the farm, you're also going to do to the other side of the farm. The squid farms are the exact same on both sides. We're just going to be building it twice, basically. So if you want to, you can just build one of these, and then as time goes on and you gather more resources, then you could build the other side if you want to. It's a really simple build process, so we're going to start with this left side over here. So we're going to go out to the furthest chunk, and this right here is going to be the layer of your magma blocks. However, of course, we need hopper minecarts to go underneath of this, so we need to install a little bit of a slab platform underneath of this thing. Basically, the easiest thing for you to do is to grab a water bucket and place it on the edge. Make sure there's nothing below you that you're going to flood, but you should be over the ocean anyway. So now we can go down this, and we're going to place a temporary block underneath that magma block, and then a slab underneath that block, 3 blocks underneath that slab, and then remove those 2 right there. And this right here is going to be the layer of your temporary walkways. I would recommend installing just a couple of very temporary walkways. That way we can install the levers on the underside of your slab platform to power all the rails. So I would recommend just build these out of netherrack, and you don't need like a ton of walkways. We can install more of these later on. And now it's time to install your slab platform. This could be made out of solid full blocks if you want to, but slabs obviously are a lot cheaper. So we need to expand this going 13 blocks away from the rest of the farm. So as you can see, there is center. We're going to be counting from this block right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then we're going to expand it to the side, to the edges of the chunk marker that we already have laid out, and then extend it to the other side as well, as you can see there. So go ahead and fill in this entire platform, which will be 13 by 16 basically, and then just fill that in with slabs. And that's about what it should look like once you have your center platform installed. And now we need to expand it to the left and to the right as well. So we need to expand it by 16 blocks from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Of course, do that on this side as well. In total, this thing should be 48 blocks wide and 13 blocks thick as well. So go ahead and extend the platform to the left side and to the right side, and of course, fill in all of these slabs too. This is what the platform should look like once you have it fully installed, and now is a good time to install some more temporary scaffolding underneath this thing. You will want 5 prongs of your scaffolding, 1 on either far end, 1 in the center, and then 1 lined up with the edges of the central chunk as well. Installing the power sources for your rails is really easy. So basically we're going to have 5 rows of power sources. I'm going to be using levers. You could use redstone blocks if you want to, but that gets very expensive very quickly. So basically, I'm going to line myself up with the center AFK spot of the farm. As you can see, there is our marker block. We're perfectly lined up with that, and I'm just going to place an additional layer of slabs on the underside of our original slab platform, and then simply place some levers on the underside of this as well. Make sure you flick all of these levers as well, that way they actually power this block. And then this is going to power the powered rails that we place above this later. So we need to install 5 lines of power sources in total. Our next line of power sources is going to be going 1 block to the right of this chunk edge right here. So we can install that line of slabs right here. And then of course you'll put your levers underneath of these as well and flick those. And then we need to go to the very far right side and place in a line of slabs 1 block in from the edge over here as well, just like so. Of course, place levers on the undersides of all of those. Now we need to go to the opposite side of the farm and do the same thing. So 1 block over from the edges of our chunk marker, we need to install more slabs on the underside. Finally, go to the very far left side, 1 block in from the edge, and you know the drill. Place in all your slabs, place in all your levers, and profit. Now that the power sources are in place, we're going to go to the far right side of the build and start installing our minecart unloaders. So I placed a couple blocks right here. This is in the very center of our 13 wide platform, which means that we have 6 blocks to either side of this platform. And we're going to place ourselves another slab right there, and then we're going to go downwards basically. So you want a chest right here for storage, a hopper above that, and then a solid block right there, an upper slab right there, and then a comparator going into a block right there, block above that, redstone torch, redstone dust, solid block right there, and then you want yourself some powered rail, and then normal rail going all the way around the corner like so. That is going to be one of your minecart unloaders. If you want an off switch for this, which is always a good idea, that way your minecarts don't get deleted, then you can place an off switch right there. And now we need to build ourselves the second minecart unloader, so go ahead and place 2 more slabs right here. We're going to place in ourselves another chest beneath this right here, and then place in ourselves a hopper above that, solid block, upper slab right there, a comparator going into a block like so, block above the comparator, redstone torch, redstone dust, and a solid block above that redstone torch like so. Install your powered rail and then your normal rail going around the corner too. And now you have both of your minecart unloaders installed, and we just need to install the rest of the rail on this platform. Before we start placing in the rails, you should go ahead and remove some of these chunk marker blocks that are above your platform. That way you don't bump your head into these and run into them. The first thing we're going to do for the powered rails is look along the left side edge and see where all of our levers are. So you can see that there is a lever underneath of this block. We're going to place in 2 rails right here, and then we're going to move along to the next edge, which is over here. Place in another 2 rails. Find the center one, so you have to break through these blocks, look over the edge, and find that center one. That right there has the powered and then move on to the next section along. So you can look over the edge, find out that this block right here is powered, put 2 rails there, and then move along to the final edge and place 2 more powered rails right there. So that is going to be your guide for placing in the rest of the powered rails going along the build. That way you know where all of the power sources are. Installing the rest of the rails from here on out is very simple. So place in a normal rail right here, and then 2 powered rails lined up with those ones. Place rails going all the way to the next batch until you place in these 2 powered rails lined up with that one, and then basically just continue on placing a powered rail on every row that you have already installed previously. And then basically once you hit the end over here, go ahead and install a little bit of a corner, 2 more powered rails, and then just keep on going back around basically. So just keep on placing in all of your rails, but once you get to this next line right here, you'll have to remove these 2, that way they don't canoodle and mess up things like that. So just remove the ones along the edge, and you already know what the power sources are because you already have several other lines to act as your guide. So for this side, you should end up with a rail line that runs basically directly off of the edge, which of course is not a good thing. You're going to lose your minecart in the ocean. So place a solid block right there, and then just 1 more powered rail. And then if we grab ourselves a minecart and place it right there, it's going to go all the way around this minecart track, keep on looping around all the way until it eventually ends up right here on this minecart unloader. Now, for the time being, I would suggest placing a lever on this block right here. That way your minecart isn't going back and forth the whole time, making annoying noises. So that is that side of the rail installed. You need to do the exact same thing on the other side. The only difference between these 2 minecart tracks is the side closer to the center of the farm is going to end with a block right there, and the side further away from the center of the farm is going to end with a block on the far side over here. So make sure that all of your rails are installed, install your hopper minecarts, and make sure they go along the tracks and return to your unloaders, and we can continue on. And now it is time to install all of your magma. So basically you need to place a magma block above every single piece of your rail, all the way from this corner to the front edge, and then all the way along this entire edge to the opposite side. You will need to remove the marker blocks for your chunk because those are now in the way. And basically this entire thing should be 48 wide by 13 deep. And that is what the platform looks like when it's installed. Pretty basic, really. And now we need to install the walls around this platform so that we can fill it with 7 layers of water. So you can build these walls out of anything that you like. However, I would recommend building them out of glass or stained glass. That way you can look into your farm and it's basically like a giant aquarium. And of course these farms need to go 1 block off of the edges of the magma, and they need to be 7 blocks tall as well. So go ahead and install these on all sides and we can fill it with water. So that is what walls around your build should look like. Really not too complicated at all. And now you need to grab yourself a bunch of ice. The easiest way to fill this entire thing with water is to use ice walls along the 2 sides, and this really is quite the straightforward thing. So basically place an entire layer of ice down here along this side, and then an entire row of ice going all the way across the back side as well. You may need to place down some light sources in order to encourage these ice blocks to melt, but as you can see, they should melt pretty quickly. And then once all the ice blocks along this back edge and this side have melted, that is going to flood the entire lower layer of the farm. So what you need to do is you need to place an entire wall of ice going up this entire left side right here, and then you need to place a wall of ice going up the entire back side as well. Now, ice is actually really easy to get. You can just go down to like one of the icebergs around your world, mine out some of the ice in the floor, and then it will eventually freeze back as well. So don't worry about getting this stuff, it's really not too difficult. However, you will need Silk Touch to acquire it. So as you can see, we've placed in the wall of ice on the back side and on the left side, but only the bottom layer is currently melting. That is because there's not enough light level to encourage these things to melt. So place a line of torches above the top here, and that will encourage the top couple layers to melt. You don't need to put a torch on like every block, just put them, you know, pretty frequently. As you can see, we were starting to get some water melting there. And then you may need to place some torches or other light emitting blocks on the back edges of this glass as well. Now, if you don't feel like waiting for it to melt, you can always just go ahead and break this with a pickaxe that doesn't have fortune, and then that will of course turn it into a water source too. Be very, very careful, however. You do not want to break any of your magma blocks, and you do not want to break any of your glass because you could flood all of your rails. When all of the ice melts, you should see a pretty cool little water effect where every single bit of this farm gets completely filled in, and then you should immediately start seeing things spawn as well. As you can see, we got some fish and some random items, and this thing is just slowly filling itself with water. It's honestly quite cool. I love this part of the farm so much because it just kind of does so much work for you. And there we go. Absolutely every single block of our squid farm is now full of water. You can now go ahead and remove all of your torches and temporary lighting blocks. And now your farm is done and dusted. So I would recommend that you go ahead and turn on your minecarts immediately because there are going to be a lot of fish and a lot of different items inside the farm. As you can see there, we're getting lots of fish and a couple of ink sacks back in the corners as well. And now you just need to do a little bit of a cleanup. So you can go ahead and remove all of your temporary scaffolding that is underneath the farm. You can remove this water source that you no longer need, and I would also recommend that you light up the minecart unloaders over here because you might have a couple things spawn on top of these. And don't forget about the blocks back here. You may want to light up these too. And also there is this block on the edge over here as well that you may want to put a torch on. Now, I would recommend that you keep the rest of these markers here because they will be useful when building the next squid farm, of course. Now, if you wanted to install your last AFK spot, the spot that you would stand at to get majority fish from your farm, you'd basically just go directly inside of the border, this border right here, and place in your next AFK spot. This should be 15 blocks from the edges of your magma, and that is allowing you to get majority fish from your farm. As you can see, there's lots of fish spawning inside of here, and this will also give you a bit of squid as well. But of course, the main AFK spot is going to be over here, and this is going to give you mostly and purely squid from your squid farm. And now that you have one side installed, you need to do absolutely everything that I just showed you, but on the opposite side as well, and that will give you the full squid farm that you can see over here. This will allow you to get a lot of drops per hour. If you go AFK overnight, you'll have a lot of ink that you can use for multitudes of different projects. And of course, if you change AFK spots every now and again, then you could of course get a ton of fish for smelting down into experience, lots of bones for bone meal, and you could even use this farm on a simulation distance of 6 if you felt like it for lots of drops. Or if you had 2 players on a simulation distance of 4, one player could AFK here on this side to get lots of fish, and the other player could AFK over here on this side to get lots of fish as well. So there's many different ways to use this farm, and hopefully it serves you very well in your Bedrock Edition worlds. If you got any questions, comments, or concerns about today's squid farm, then of course let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always trying to help you guys out as best as I possibly can. But if you did enjoy today's Bedrock Edition tutorial, then let me know. Leave a like on the video. It significantly helps out the video and the channel a ton. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you're new here, then consider subscribing so that you don't miss a future Bedrock Edition tutorials. I got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline that I think you might enjoy, so you can look forward to that. Otherwise, I will see you guys down in the comment section and in the next one. Thank you so very much for watching, and then there was silence.